Hey, I'm Tim from Circuitous Effects, and you're watching Defining Circuit. Defining Circuit is a periodic interview series where I chat with fellow creators in the music world about what inspired and defined their passion for building, the moments, ideas, experiences, and even the circuit that sparked their drive to create for musicians. I'm here with Mike Timpson from Seeker Electric Effects today. Thanks for coming on, Mike.
Hey, thanks, man.
Let's begin with you telling us about yourself and how you got into making pedals.
Well, I started just doing it as a hobby, like most people. I think I wanted to sort of try a bunch of stuff, and pedals were kind of expensive, so
Okay.
I just started making everything I could think of that I saw Andy on Pro Guitar Shop do a demo of.
Hmm.
You could find like schematics and layouts for those, and they were all pretty badly made for the first 10 years or so,
Yeah.
but you learn a lot. But I really got sort of stuck on wanting to learn how to make a particular fuzz pedal, and that kind of started it all for me. It was the Mark One Tone Bender.
Okay.
I probably talk way too much about the Mark One Tone Bender, but it just happens to be my favorite fuzz pedal. Sometimes you have to learn to play it, and sometimes it just plays you. So it's kind of a hard pedal to make and to play. It's sort of the right amount of like gated and sustained combination, and it has a particular EQ that seems to work really well
Yeah.
to like cut in the mix, and then the texture of it. It almost reminds me of like a Rat or a Vox amp or something, where it's just
Hmm.
kind of like this cranked sound all the time. It's not very polite, and it kind of just makes you play really to the effect a lot more than some fuzz pedals. You have to be willing to let go of your preconceived ideas or notions sometimes. And other, like the way you normally play is might not work that well with that pedal.
Yeah.
But I got
That's
a
cool.
couple early on, and I was in my journey. I kind of found some builders that were willing to make some because they were so rare at the time. You couldn't really. I guess this was probably around 2014 or 15. There was only a few builders I knew of, other than Macari's, that made them very sparingly. And I got a couple, and I was kind of hooked at that point. I really wanted to learn why and how can I make it like how I want it to be. Because there were
Yeah.
some things about some pedals that I liked, and then some things about others that I liked that were all Mark Ones. They're all a little bit different, also from the same builder. They can be different.
Right. Looking back at when you first started, when you said like, schematics were all pretty bad, you wanted to figure out how to make the Mark One and everything. How did you approach learning how to read schematics and how to put them together with
uh
circuits?
well, I had help, thankfully, learning how to read schematics early on, but a lot of it was just putting the time in myself, like learning
Yeah.
how to do it. Once it clicked, it was very much like reading music, or learning how to read tablature even, or anything like that, where it's like
Right.
it doesn't make sense when you look at it with no context. Once you have the context, it becomes, oh yeah, it's like learning a language, sort of.
Yeah.
So that resources, there's so many resources on the internet now, but I would say I just poured a lot of time into reading the internet a lot.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation, like
Yeah.
always in any context, but you kind of learn to do it your own way anyway, and that's kind of all you can really do. So,
As you were dealing with some of the misinformation early on, was it the local help that you had that kind of helped you figure out how to
uh,
debug what you were doing, or
no, not really. No, he kind of spurred the idea.
yeah.
This was Jonathan at Affected Effects, if you remember Jonathan.
Yeah,
So
of
he
course.
early on he did like an amp class. I was into like kind of modding. You could buy old Fender amps, 15 or 20 years ago for nothing,
Right.
especially like a silver panel Fender amp. So I got into like, buying a few of those and like kind of fixing them and modding them. And he got me on the path of like being really interested in that. And early on, I messed so many things up and he fixed it mostly, but and then later it all kind of clicked. So
Okay.
it just took some time to do that. I wish I would have taken like some kind of classes, but YouTube, really, you can do everything now with like YouTube and Google or
Yeah.
whatever search engine you want to use. You kind of have to be careful about. There's like a lot of people that feel like there's rules or like things have to be a certain way, or like sometimes people approach these things, especially old fuzz circuits, with like kind of a surgical approach of like transistors should be biased at such and such because that's how transistors work, but really they were trying to make something that was like broken sounding at the
Yeah.
time. So you kind of have to go into it like with some knowledge, but then you have to be able to like figure out what to change to make it sound how you want it to. And it took a while.
So you're someone that uses a lot of NOS vintage components and tries to make your circuits pretty true to spec, at least from the
Yeah.
beginning stages. Is that something that you went into right away, kind of thinking you would be doing, or is that something that you evolved into?
Well, with my brand, yes, definitely. But before that, no, I guess I didn't really. I mean, Before that, I was just making whatever. But with, old fuzz circuits, you kind of have to use germanium, and there's not a lot of new production unless you buy like large quantities of it now.
Yeah.
So unless you order it like from a factory, but it was easy at the time, and even still now to like find old stuff. I don't kind of like using old stuff because it's out there. If it's usable, it's kind of like upcycling in a way, or like
Yeah.
you're using stuff that never got used in like the 70s and 80s and 90s, and like I don't know, it kind of feels like it could just sit in a pile, or I could make something out of it.
Yeah. Now,
And
are you finding it harder to find some of that stuff? Or you said it was easy to find still, but I
well,
mean, is it getting harder?
really
Yeah.
specific stuff is like sporadic. You can find anything, I mean, any old thing, but really to make these in any kind of quantity, you have to be able to buy enough to like sort because they're all going to be very wildly different specs. So as long as you buy enough in bulk, probably good. But
Yeah.
then as soon as you are looking for something very specific, that's when it becomes difficult. And every now and then somebody will unearth some. I'm convinced there may be a conspiracy that's sort of holding back what's left. And they're just kind of like putting it out a little bit at a time. And they're saying, oh, no, we only have five left. You know
That's
what I mean?
hilarious.
But I don't know if that's true. But I know that, people find stuff in garages. Most of the really cool stuff is all kind of overseas in the UK and in Europe.
Yeah.
Like the really cool looking things, I think from the 60s. Sometimes, it's just like cool font on a capacitor or like
Yeah.
colors, things like that. There's definitely cool stuff here. Some of it's really not that usable anymore, but
Yeah.
you kind of just find what you can. And
Have you ever tried to make one of your signature pedals with all new components, or have you just stuck to?
I mean, okay, when I do like prototyping and stuff, a lot of times I'll just use whatever I can reach. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like new caps, or like I have like a box of green Mylar caps that has all the values. You just buy like a big bulk box of it. Yeah, I'll just use like a lot of different random
Yeah.
whatever I can find. And yeah, it doesn't sound that different. It's mainly like just trying to find like the values that are right. But there is kind of some magic in some old caps that aren't really doing their best anymore, and they're kind of leaky. And
Yeah.
sometimes you kind of find some, it'll just be one pedal that's a little bit different, and that might be why.
Yeah.
But
So
sometimes it's bad. So
yeah.
sometimes you just leaks voltage into your guitar, so it's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you initially were doing a lot of just one-off pedal designs for many years, and recently you kind of put
Yeah.
out some lines of pedals that are definitely not like production line, but more quantity. Can you talk
Yeah.
a little about how you went from doing the custom pedals to doing a series?
Well, just part of it's just trying to keep up with like demand, and you can buy more custom build version, but it's more expensive because it's just so much more, labor hours goes
Yeah.
into drilling and painting and then building the circuit board and populating the board, all that stuff. It's just really time consuming. And then you have a lot more pedals to make after that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like at first I was just trying to think of ways to make the circuits a little more unique or approachable or like ways to adjust them more.
Yeah.
But I think mainly people just want the thing. You know what I mean? If it's like
Right.
they want the Zonk, they want the Mark One. So I kind of went into doing that and then making them a little smaller
Mm.
and kind of streamlining, getting components, getting all that stuff to where it's sort of more controlled on my end is nice to where I'm like ordering circuit boards specifically for me instead of relying on someone else's inventory.
Yeah.
It's kind of nicer for me, and it's a lot less expensive to make them that way. So I can also make them more kind of approachable and more affordable, which I wanted to do. I've always wanted to have like a Mark One tone bender that was readily available, like people could buy it, and it was like a fairly affordable price for what it is,
That's great.
because it did not exist in the market really 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah. You've also done a few kits and things. How's that going? Getting kits out to people?
Oh, it's fun. It's kind of fun because people will share, and
Yeah.
so I've had only like two people have issues, and I haven't sold maybe that many kits, maybe like around 50 kits or something. But
Okay.
it's really fun because people will share the build. There was one YouTube channel that had bought one, the Pedal Couple is their name
Mhm.
on YouTube, and they made a video about building the pedal and then testing the sound and stuff. What I did was take an old model, but what's cool about it is you kind of have like an external bias control, so you kind of have something where you feel like you're adjusting the circuit
Yeah.
without kind of really having to get really techy. But the
Yeah.
bias control gives you kind of some adjustment and stuff. And then you still get like a full sort of classic fuzz sound out of it when you're done.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really fun. And I think it's really fun to see people's like ideas for painting it. And I give them like a decal. So it still has like the Seeker logo on it. But
Okay.
it's always going to be something that like I definitely didn't build this. No matter, I was a little bit worried about that at first, but it's quite clear I didn't build most of them, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But
Yeah.
it's really cool to see other people's style too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've gotten to see a couple of your test rigs and some things that you created to help your process be a little more streamlined in terms of biasing transistors and working on your pedals. What are some
Yeah,
other things that maybe you've learned over time that have made your process easier, something that you can impart to other pedal builders?
I mean, especially if you're just starting, learn how things work, like
Mhm.
switches and jacks. Like learn how to wire it up without looking at something. Like learn how the switch works. That's big. But reading schematics and then being able to translate a schematic onto a breadboard, that's huge.
Yeah.
And I went into some detail on that on doing like a YouTube video,
Mhm.
and I have not done a follow up on it because I've been too busy. But
Yeah.
stuff like that is really big. Just breadboarding stuff for ideas. And if you have to build a pedal with old parts, breadboard it with the old parts
Yeah.
because you'll find fault in the old parts before you
Yeah.
put it all together. That's a nightmare.
Well, with all of the classic fuzzes that you center on, at least for the stuff you put out commercially, are you still breadboarding new ideas, things that you haven't ever done
Yeah,
before?
I breadboarded something yesterday. So
Yeah.
yeah, all the time. Probably every other day.
Oh, that's cool.
I have ideas, definitely. I would love to do so many things. It's a very slow process. Two, I think three pedal designs that I have coming out, which are just classic stuff, but it's just getting it all into production. It takes months. For me, that's a long time. For some people, that's like really fast, but
Yeah.
I can kind of move things a little bit faster. But yeah, I wish I had more time to do stuff, but definitely use breadboard a lot. And I made my own little breadboard thing. It's the way to go, I think.
Yeah.
There's some that are out there, but if you want to do any positive ground things, like it's sort of not common to find a pre-made breadboard that will work positive ground without sort of modifying it.
Yeah, that's always a tricky thing. Well, what's in the future for Seeker Electric Effects? Are you coming out with any new series or any new lines, or are you just kind of sticking to what you're doing right now?
Kind of expanding two lines, which is the Lineage series, which is the sort of 125V size pedals, the smaller pedals.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've got a few models in that. Like I've got enclosures and circuit boards ready to go. I just have to get the circuits dialed in and get them built. And then expanding like into more true to vintage enclosures
Okay.
and circuit build style, all that stuff. Just doing some more models. I've started doing that on quite a few now. Now that kind of the enclosures are more readily available, or like you can get them from several places, but having that as an option, like I did a buzz around,
Right.
like in the old style enclosure, old style build, all that. I've never done like sort of Mark II tone bender and then Supa Mark One tone bender stuff, but I'm starting to do more of that in like the vintage style
That'll be
cases and
cool.
stuff.
Yeah. That'll be fun to play.
Just kind of I'm working on those two things and then kind of moving away from the more modified circuits, although I may still bring that back in like small runs and stuff.
All right. Well, hey, thanks again for chatting with me,
Yeah,
Mike.
man.
And thanks everyone for watching. If you enjoyed the conversation, stick around. More interviews are on the way where I'll keep exploring all the things that define why we do what we do. See you next time.